Anthony Fauci, the man we were not allowed to question for 2 years, the man who lied about masks, lied about social distancing, lied about what the NIH was doing in Wuhan, all of the stuff. Well, now he's kind of admitting that he doesn't even know if lockdowns work.
I'm interested in your reluctance to use the word lockdown. Do you think 2 years on that they were worth it, or were they too severe?
You know, I don't think we're ever going to be able to determine what the right balance is. I think the restrictions, if you want to use that word, which I tend to shy away from, lockdown, there's certainly prevented a lot of infections, prevented a lot of hospitalizations, and prevented a lot of deaths. There's no doubt about that. Obviously, when you do have that kind of restriction on society, there are unintended negative consequences, particularly in children who are not allowed to go to school, in the psychological and mental health aspects it has on children, in the economic stress that it puts on society in general, on individual families. Obviously, those are negative consequences that are unintended.
Or are they intended, you freak? So when he talks about it prevented lockdowns, prevented infection, hospitalization, and death, notice, as always, he never gives you numbers. How many hospitalizations did it prevent? Lockdowns, locking people in their houses. Doesn't tell you that. How many people didn't die because of it? Doesn't tell you that, because he doesn't have data on that. And when he talks about the unintended consequences, was it not obvious from beat one, if you locked people down, that alcoholism rates were going to go up and drug use was going to go up and depression and all sorts of stuff that we have seen? I mean, crazy rates of all of these things. And I'd love to see numbers on how many more people are on prescription pills these days as opposed to 2 years before, although I'm sure he would love that, Mr. Science over there. And what this all proves is that DeSantis, again, I'm trying to show you that there is a way to fight back, and it starts with the individual because DeSantis is just one man. There is a way to fight back. And what it shows you is that when all hell was breaking loose, some people didn't completely lose their minds. And in Florida, they didn't completely lose their minds. So if any of it worked, the rates of COVID and death and hospitalizations and all this stuff would have been completely out of control here in Florida and completely under control in California. And you know what? From all the studies that I've seen, and I welcome you to show me counter studies, it's been pretty much comparable, on top of the fact that Florida has the second oldest population in the United States, okay? So they have lied about everything, and that's all they can do. And if you think, Dave, well, no, they don't lie about everything. They wouldn't just make up numbers and a whole bunch more on that. Well, first, I've got some info here on just generally what has happened with COVID. This is from the Daily Wire. More than half of Americans, 52%, say they have contracted the virus, according to a new Monmouth University poll. This appears to be the first poll to show a majority of Americans saying they've been infected at some point. An August poll from the Pew Research Center showed that 30% had tested positive or were pretty sure they'd contracted the virus. Okay, so that means a whole bunch of people got it in states that did lock down and didn't lock down. And you know what? 99.9 whatever percent of people survived, and everyone should take whatever precautions they think are necessary. But now back to the lying, because they do lie about everything. You're not going to admit this. The CDC, yeah, they bungled the numbers. They're admitting it now. We've got more from the Daily Wire here. The Center for Disease Control updated its COVID-19 death statistics last week, revealing that the agency had included an additional 72,000 deaths that should not have been counted as COVID deaths. The change impacted 26 states and all age groups. The CDC explained in a footnote that the overcount stemmed from a coding logic error. Yeah, they forgot to carry the one. With a total of about 970,000 deaths from COVID-19, the extra deaths compose about 7.5% of that number. That ain't no small number. 416 extra pediatric COVID-19 deaths also represent a significant revision from the initial data. The question of how to differentiate between how many deaths were from COVID-19 and how many deaths were with COVID-19 still remains, meaning that if you went to the hospital and you had some other infection or something else that was going to kill you, but you also had COVID, they would just chalk it up to COVID. But okay, so they lied all along about what they were doing and whether it was working or not. They never really tell you the numbers. They fudge all the statistics. And now they're admitting, oh, we had a coding error at the CDC. You know, is anyone going to be fired? Is anyone going to be reprimanded? No, because the machine is evil, people.